Well, welcome to another edition of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper. And we're so glad to be broadcasting live right here from the nation's capital on Martin Luther King Avenue in Southeast DC. If you're watching on Facebook, click share so your friends can join the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us. And if you're a TikTok user, follow us there too. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, Washington Informer TV. We're going to jump right into the show because right now we are joined by Ward 7 ANC Commissioner Joel Caston and Washington Informer staff reporter Sam P.K. Collins. In this week's issue of the Washington Informer, Sam writes about the transfer of 400 DC defendants to a federal facility. The jail, the DC jail is, believe it or not, a 149-year-old facility built in 1872. But in recent years, overcrowding, lack of air conditioning, and other issues have been the source of complaints by inmates and their families. And since the January 6th insurrection and the influx of inmates who've come in from out of state, those conditions have become a top priority for the District of Columbia and the federal prisons. And so some of those prisoners, about 400 that's predicted, will be reportedly transferred to federal prisons across the country. Sam and Commissioner Caston, thank you so much for being here and helping to set the record straight. I just outlined some issues, but I'm not sure if I'm on point with them all. And so I'm sure both of you all can clear them up. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Sam, and Commissioner Caston. But thank you so much for being with us today.
As always, many thanks for the opportunity, Denise and Commissioner Caston. Such a pleasure to be able to speak with you again. We had a chance to speak on Tuesday after your lawyers successfully fought on your behalf to not get transferred to Lewisburg. Would you mind speaking about that with us briefly?
Sure. First, I'd like to say thank you for having me this morning. The Washington Informer is doing a great job articulating these very important matters. My victory was bittersweet. As you stated, Sam, my attorneys were successful in stopping me being transferred because of my parole matters. However, my constituents, 97 to be exact, have already been transferred into federal custody. It is something that we taken to be very outrageous. I can say this here, Sam, that inside the facility, fear is haunting the halls and the hearts of my residents here, my constituents here. No one wants to be transferred to a facility such as Lewisburg, which has been on record as being an inhumane location and facility itself. So that definitely is the remedy why we do not argue against the findings of the condition on the CDF side of the facility. One thing I would say, Denise, that facility was actually, I believe it's 44 years old. It is not as old, but it is definitely older than the facility, the CTF side where I'm currently housed at now. However, Lewisburg, where many of my constituents are being transferred to, is significantly older than the CDF side or the Central Detention Facility, which is commonly known as DC Jail. So it isn't a remedy. It is the answer to what was found. And the fact that we had outside forces coming inside of our locale, doing the investigation, and then coming in with a remedy that clearly none of my stakeholders, none of my constituents have endorsed, is definitely outrageous. I stated before, and I'll say it again, fear is haunting the halls and hearts of my residents inside of this single member district, that is to say, DC jail.
And I really appreciate that answer. And I really empathize with you as you express the fear that is ruminating throughout the halls. It's my understanding that there are some inmates who are filing injunctions to pretty much stay in place. Would you happen to know about the progress that some of them are making or what's going on, as some of those 400 are attempting to stay?
No, I don't. I'm not privy to that information. I'm quite certain that if they're doing so, it's probably being done so in their legal capacity with their attorneys, which had to be an attorney-client privilege associated with that right there. I'm not aware whether or not a larger organization has taken it up, such as like Public Defender Service or Washington Lawyers Committee or things of that nature. But if they are, and if they haven't, this is a great time to do so. And the other thing I want to say also, the fact that because these are people, as you know myself, Sam, I personally fight against the word inmate. That it's a terminology that has been utilized against incarcerated people, which can somewhat be desensitizing, right? And so we do want to see them as people and who happen to be incarcerated. But I don't have a direct answer to your question right there, but I will say this here. This would be a good time for public defenders and other legal entities to step in and to help those individuals to remain in place, that they may adequately fight in their legal affairs, which is extremely important. There's no way you can perform your legal duties being so far away. We know that that right now, being able the cost associated with making such a travel, that itself that can't be maintained. That's number one. And number two, it's very difficult to maintain a relationship with your family members when you're being so far away. So it needs to be something in place that can ensure that those residents can remain here while they're working out their legal matters.
And if I recall correctly, you made some of those points during your testimony before the council's committee on the judiciary on Wednesday. Would you mind speaking more about that?
Yes. First, I would say definitely kudos to Councilmember Charles Allen, his leadership in that capacity, assembling the convening of such a short notice on an issue that is so important as this matter here that we're discussing right now. During that time, I really want to make sure that they understand that, number one, as I stated, no one in the inside are disputing those findings. But what they are disputing, the fact that the remedy that was prescribed, rather, sending people so far away from their family members. And there's definitely an outrage, the fact that this has came to light. First and foremost, we know that the condition inside of this carceral space, and any carceral space for that matter, is not conducive. It hasn't been conducive here in DC jail for quite some time. But it came to light when we had less than 0.1% raising this matter, which happened to be Caucasians, white people, who brought this into the forefront. And now that prompted an investigation and then a swift decision to send my constituent so far away from the District of Columbia. That's where the outrage lies at. It lies in the fact that this came in as something that is not new. It just came about. And now, because of political muscle that these individuals have, they utilize their ties to bring awareness to their condition, their plight. And then when the findings was done, this side, the CTF side, the Central Treatment Facility side, was deemed to be suitable. But the other side, the CDF side, was deemed to be unsuitable, which we know that's an aging facility. It's been that way for long. And so what I wanted council members to take in consideration that we need a new facility. We definitely need a new facility. There was a lot of investigation about a new facility. No, it hasn't been any concrete date or funding about a new facility, but I found on that record that the council members are also in favor of a new facility, because this is what the people are clamoring for. But we don't want a facility that's simply a warehouse. We got to get away from that model warehousing. Frankly, where I'm currently at right now in the young men emerging community, we have created a model that's more equitable for incarcerated people. And so the new space has to be a new space, but it can't be following the model of traditional run of the mill of being a warehouse. It can't be that. And the next thing I brought to their attention was the simple fact that we need an oversight. We need an oversight that consists of stakeholders, people who are here, Washingtonians. Washingtonians prescribing what's best for Washingtonians, and not outside telling Washingtonians what's best for them. So we need community stakeholders to be a part of that convening, that they can. Councilmember Charles Allen did something that was remarkable in the year of 2019. He held a public hearing inside the facility. I would like to have an oversight hearing inside the facility that the council members and the community at large can hear from the people who are on the inside. We need to hear from the people on the inside. Sure, I'm happy as the commissioner represent my constituents on the inside, but it'd be even more impactful if they were able to hear directly from the people also. So having an oversight hearing, you can hear from the people, can state what they believe is best and the need to be done about fixing the aging side of the facility and bringing forth a renovation that would be more suitable for the people who live here and work here. Those are the two primary points I brought up. And the final point I brought up is the advocacy for statehood. The fact that the federal government has the knee on our neck and can come in and do whatever they want to do, and DC has no say-so in the matter, is a clear indication why we should have statehood here in the District of Columbia.
You brought up so many good points, sir. I'm trying to figure out what direction we can go in as far as the next question, but I want you to briefly speak about your program with the young men that are in the facility. You know, when we're speaking about reform and not warehousing these facilities, how have you been able to create an environment that is suitable for the people coming in?
Oh, Sam, that's a good question, Sam. And to answer that question, the first thing I want to do, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Quincy L. Booth. Quincy L. Booth had a vision. His vision was to say, let me, building off the science that the frontal lobe of the brain doesn't develop until the mid-20s, right? This is scientifically proven. So the way we treat our younger people, hold them to a harsher condition as relates to their elder counterparts or their older counterparts, right? It's not suitable scientifically. They don't have the capacity to be able to weigh the consequence of actions. So what Director Booth did was he pitched that idea and he said, hey, let's run with it. There was a lot of study have been done in Norway. Norway has been the vanguard in this particular regards here with treating their inside incarcerated people more equitably, more fairly. And so we said, let's do this. I was sought out because of some of my things that I was doing on the inside. And they're like, hey, they want to have up a new program based on mentorship. We threw your name in the hat. What you think about that? I immediately said yes. My personal story is I've been incarcerated since the age of 18. So the 18 and 25, and now I'm currently 45. So that's 27 years of direct justice involvement that I have. It means a lot to me. I know how I felt when I first came in. So I began to come in here with my colleague and co-founder mentor, Michael Woody. And what we did was we built upon our lived experience. We built upon the wisdom that we gained. I've been in 16 facilities. I like to say I had my eyes open the whole time. By the grace of God, I haven't succumbed to the things that are associated with a prison environment. So I know what works and what doesn't work. And so I was able to implement some of these programs and some of these ideas and concepts within this community. So first thing I did was I made sure you understand it's a community. Many of my guys never understood or heard the word of community until they came inside the Young Men Emerging YME community. So I want to instill in them the sense of being a community member and being a part of community. With that comes a mindset. And so what Michael and I did, we tried to do everything that hinges along the lines of normalcy. Thus, we don't wear the traditional orange uniform inside of our community. We wear garments that's more humanizing, so we can think like a person. One of the most ingenuity ideas that my co-founder mentor and I did was we created a money system. Here's our currency right here, right? I'm Jerome Powell in here. I'm the Federal Reserve Chairman. As it's a known fact that I'm a financial geek. So I build upon my financial knowledge and say, hey, let's have a bank, because it's a known fact that people that come disinvested in marginalized community don't have a banking relationship. So what we did was we created a bank, and I also created currency for that bank. And that bank, we was able to sell to the administration staff that within our community, we have a barbershop, we have a different amenities by which our people can feel good about themselves. And the way they can have access to this stuff is by utilizing the YME money. And so I backed the YME money by first we came out our own pockets and bought commissary items. And we say, hey, here's commissary items for the guys that don't get money from their family members and loved ones. We're buy the stuff ourselves, put it in our YME store. You can use our YME money to buy these items. So what happened is that I incentivize good behavior. When you do good things, like for example, YME money is big in here. I'm big on writing reflections, right? So when you do book reports, you can do a book report, you can turn it to one of my mentors and I'll pay you for it. You can use that same money to buy some of the things you want from the YME store. Brilliant. I want to use that same idea into our community, because although I'm receiving a lot of accolades for my work on reentry, I believe that no entry trumps reentry. We got to turn off the faucet that my good friend Terrence Davis talks about. We need to turn off the faucet, stop people from coming in from the beginning, invest on the front end. We know that disinvesting communities are not receiving their fair share in investment. So once we know the people that come from Ward 7 and Ward 8, these are the individuals who have been funneled into the penal system. These are the individuals that have been funneled inside of carceral spaces. Why not invest on the front end, reverse the practice of redlining that took place? We had a Community Reinvestment Act in 1977, yet Federal Chairman Jerome Powell is still being drilled today and saying what advancements have the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, done inside of these disinvested community. We know the answer.
You're bringing up a lot of good points. So, with all of that, I have to ask you, given what we've seen with the quick response that the federal government gave in light of the January 6th insurrectionist complaints, what opportunities do we have to rectify all of those inequities that you spoke about? How does that look from this point on, now that all eyes are on DC?
Yeah, this is a time for us to act fast and swiftly and making sure that DC has statehood. Statehood is extremely important. Taxation without representation is playing out right before our eyes and it's been happening for far too long. This is a time we can see that I'm so happy in my personal capacity that I was able to avoid transfer only by the grace of God because of my legal affairs, my attorneys. It had nothing to do about this other stuff. It was strictly about my personal case. However, if the mayor of this city wanted to say, I do not want Mr. Castone to be transferred, she would have zero power to stop it. This is why we need statehood. On a myriad reasons why DC needs its own statehood. The fact that we can be transferred from one place to another, 27 years incarceration in 16 different facilities. It's not as easy as saying you're getting on the bus and you're going to somewhere else. You're not catching an Uber here. You've been handcuffed oftentimes for 12 hours straight. You've been subjected to body cavity search, which sometimes leads to sexual molestation, sexual abuse. This is what happens when your loved ones are being transferred from one location to another. This is the story of DC inmates. This is the story of DC incarcerated residents. This is why they call us inmates, because you're saying you could just move them like cattle. So we don't have an ownership or we don't have a say-so on our own people within our own jurisdiction. Then what authority, what power do we have?
When I spoke with you earlier this week, you said that people from DC inside the federal correctional facilities are often treated as a game. Would you mind speaking more about that? What beyond what you said already, what are some other issues that DC people go through when they enter federal facilities hundreds, thousands of miles away from their home?
One of the things I would say, because the fact that it's hard to understand as legal wise, right? You have this, your legal matters are tied up to DC code. However, you're being judged by federal codes. So that's a hybrid right there. They don't know how to, they being the administration don't know how to deal with. I heard it so many times, like, we don't know what to do with you DC guys, because we don't know how to even administer our job with you, because it's so confusing from a legal standpoint. Point number two, because we come from DC, we have the moniker of DC Blacks has been cast upon us. And anyone knows DC. DC have crews. We never had gangs. Never had gangs. However, under being filtered within that system, we're treated like a game. And so what happens is that, now understand this here, the people in Pennsylvania and all these other places, they know that a large group of DC guys are coming in. Now it's about territory. They want to maintain what they have. And the inside, there's politics inside the carceral spaces also. That looks like real estate for TVs and TV rooms and, and certain locations and favorable locations on the rec yard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have a demographic that's outside of DC from these other, they call them cars, they're geographical locations, and now they all band together to go against DC. And then the administration themselves, they say, we don't like you DC guys. Then the administration going against DC. So DC is catching hell from the moment they come in to the moment they come out. And for the individual that was transferred here, they was happy to be here, yet to the chagrin of being transferred back to a place where they no longer want to be.
Forgive me, I'm just at awe with everything that you said. In my interviews with other advocates for justice reform and return to citizens, I hear, these things, but you said it probably the most poignantly and most on point out of all the people that I've spoken with over the last couple of years. Before we wrap up, what is the message that you want to leave with our audience, this afternoon? What is it that you want them to take away from everything that you just said?
We have to advocate for a new facility. This new facility cannot be a traditional run-of-the-mill. It has to have the infrastructure in place where we can stop thinking about reentry from day one. Reentry starts from the first day of incarceration. We need to get our people inside registered to vote so they can become a part of the democratic process. The next thing we need to do, we have to renovate the CDF side of this facility. The main jail, DC jail. We need stakeholders to be a part of that. They need to be more equitable. We need to get natural light coming in inside. We need to get that ventilation system fixed. We need to have people that's there who's dedicated and committed to making sure that the inside residents are being treated like human beings. And finally, we must do everything we can to clamor for statehood. Statehood is extremely important. This is the time to rally behind our politicians to advocate and demand for statehood for DC.
Commissioner Castone, everyone, on ANC Single Member District 7F07, which not only includes DC Jail, includes the Harriet Tubman Women's Shelter and a new development, if I recall correctly.
That's correct.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, Denise. Appreciate you as always.
No, I appreciate both of you. Commissioner Castone, you couldn't have articulated the issues any better. I'm sure you could have, though, because you just do well. But I mean, we want to make sure that this message gets out to everybody that's had a chance to hear what's going on. You're right. I love that idea about having a hearing inside of DC jail. Folks just don't know, they really don't know. And I think that's a good idea. And we're going to advocate for that, help to advocate for that as well as the other issues that you've mentioned. You all had a great conversation. This will not be the last time.
Thank you.
We're on a
Thanks
mission. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. So, we want to follow that. And I want to ask you, if you are concerned about what's happening over at DC jail, if you have some questions that you'd like for us to answer, or for Sam or our other reporter, James Wright, to follow up on, send us a email at news@washingtoninformer.com. Ask us any questions. We will follow up. I'm sure Commissioner Castone would be happy to help us to address some of those questions as well. But we want to hear from you. Again, send your questions, comments, concerns to news@washingtoninformer.com. In addition to Sam's story this week, we also want to say that reporter, staff writer James Wright talked to DC Mayor Bowser, let me get that right, DC Mayor Bowser, about her upcoming mayoral race. She did announce that she will be jumping in to the race to keep her seat. And it's a great conversation that James Wright had with her in this week's Informer, as well as the story he wrote covering comedian Kevin Hart, who visited the JP Morgan Chase Bank at Skyland in Southeast. And Kevin Hart was here not only to say some funny things, but to talk some serious things about the importance of banking in the Black community and how Black folks need to sort of engage in financial planning and to connect and build relationships with their local bankers. And this, Kevin Hart was serious because he came from a position of experience and shared some real insights. So you can visit our website or pick up the copy of the Washington Informer and read that story, as well as the story by staff writer William Ford, who covered the climate crisis and shared details of his recent tour of NASA Goddard Space Flight Center with Vice President Kamala Harris. So there are lots of stories in this week's issue of the Washington Informer. You definitely want to check it out. It's available at your newsstand, or you can read it online at www.washingtoninformer.com. We're really proud of the photograph we even had of by our photographer, Anthony Tillman, who was out at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Some historical things have happened there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Veterans Day, which was yesterday. But moving on, we want to also tell you that today we're giving away tickets for anyone who wants to attend the William O. Lockridge Community Foundation Dancing with the Scholars program tomorrow, Saturday, November 13th, at the Arc in Southeast from 7 to 9 p.m. Now, if you want to go, you must have proof of a vaccine. the COVID vaccine or a COVID test within the last 72 hours before the event, because it is tomorrow night. And if you want one of the 5 sets of tickets that we want to give away, you and a guest can email us again at news at washingtoninformer.com. I would suggest that you do that right now while we're still on the show, and then we can contact you as soon as we're done to make sure that those tickets are available to you. Again, for the Dancing with the Scholars program, sponsored by the William O. Lockridge Foundation, that takes place tomorrow night. And we have tickets for 5 sets of tickets. So we certainly would like to invite you, and we want to see you there because we'll be there. So yeah, when you email us, send your name and phone number, and we'll make sure that you receive those tickets. You know, November 11, yesterday was Veterans Day. And in honor of our veterans, today we'll be joined by Dr. Lawrencia Pierce, the Deputy Director of Outreach, Transition and Economic Development at the Veterans Benefits Administration, and Lane Williams, the District of Columbia Director at the U.S. Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Administration and Training Services. So we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the programs, resources, and other issues and opportunities that are available for veterans in the DC area. And of course, we always want to thank you for your service. And also, November is American Diabetes Month. So in conjunction with that, as well as National Caregiver Month, we'll be talking with caregivers Patricia Morris and Monica Perry about the life that many of us live and how to take care of yourself as a caregiver and as you're taking care of others. Two of the candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for comptroller of Prince George's County recently spoke to Prince George's editor William Ford about their upcoming campaigns. And they are Maryland State Delegate Brooke Learman and businessman Tim Adams. So we look forward to that conversation that we'll have with them. But before we get there, we like to hear from our broadcast reporter, Curtis Knowles, on the news happening in the DMV.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. A study by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences said that the Earth's oceans are polluted with over 25,000 tons of coronavirus-related plastic. Since the start of the pandemic, the world has generated over 8 million tons of related waste, with the majority being produced through hospitals. The plastic waste poses a major threat to marine life and ecosystems. Researchers wrote in the PNAS that the plastic debris could also facilitate species invasions and transport of contaminants, including the COVID-19 virus. A federal judge ruled Tuesday that the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 Capitol attacks can have access to requested White House records from the Trump administration held by the National Archives. Last month, former President Trump sued the committee and the archives in an attempt to halt the transfer of his records, citing executive privilege. Judge Tanya Chutkan ruled against him, allowing the records transfers that are set for November 12th. The U.S. Treasury Department states that Maryland hasn't met federal requirements for distributing coronavirus relief funds it received to assist residents facing eviction. This could cause the state to lose some of the funding as a result. The national eviction moratorium expired in August after several extensions by Congress. A spokesperson for Governor Larry Hogan said that the state has distributed the funds accordingly and isn't in danger of losing any federal assistance. A Maryland teenager has made history after winning Team USA's first boxing title for men in more than a decade. Featherweight Jamal Harvey won 6 matches at the World Championship in Belgrade, Serbia. Harvey, who hails from Oxon Hill, Maryland, defeated Sarek Tamirsanov of Kazakhstan in the finals to claim the USA's boxing first male elite world championship since 2007. Speaking on the situation, Harvey said that he was feeling good being the 2021 world champion and that all his hard work paid off.
This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Thank you, Curtis. And go, our champion there. We're so glad that we got that in there and we got a chance to celebrate his victory. You know, I tell you, we've got some great talent right here in the DC area. So we're going to jump in now to our conversation with Mr. Williams and Dr. Pierce. We want to talk to you all. First of all, let me just say, I mean, Veterans Day was yesterday, but we cannot say it enough to those of you all who have served to say thank you for your service. And thank you so much for being with us. Is Dr. Pierce there? So while she comes in, Mr. Williams, we'll start with you, and we'll just kind of go from there. And when she gets back, we'll have her to join us. So tell us now, you are at the Veterans Benefits Administration. Is that correct?
First of all, Denise, thank you for having me here today.
Sure.
I'm with the U.S. Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training Services.
Okay. All right. And tell us, we're just going to start with you while Dr. Pierce gets relaxed. Tell us a little bit about what happens there. What do you do? How are you serving veterans?
Wow.
Mr. Williams, I know it's a big question, and we could probably spend a week answering it, but that's hopefully because there are so many services that you're providing.
Exactly. There are a lot of services that I'm responsible and have oversight over. Under the U.S. Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training, our mission here is to prepare American veterans, transitional service members, military spouses with meaningful employment, meaningful careers. And with that, we provide information and expertise in those areas. We protect their employment rights, and we promote employment opportunities. There are 3 grant programs that I have oversight in, and that is the Transitional Assistance Program and the Jobs for Veterans State Grant, which is the JVSG grant, and the Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program, which is a grant that serves our homeless veterans. And then I have an oversight over the compliance with this, which is the Uniform Service Employment Right. Let me back up a little bit. It's the Uniform Service Employment Reemployment Rights Act, which is known as USERRA. So that is to protect our National Guard and reservists.
Fantastic. And when someone returns, home from the military, and at what point can they come and knock on your door?
So Veterans Employment and Training, which is our TAP program, provides information and training to all service members and their spouses. So what we're trying to do, Denise, is we're trying to transition our service members from the military back into civilian life. And with that, VETS offers and they administer 2 workshops that are mandatory to transitional service members. And there are optional 2-day career exploration and career preparation programs that is offered also. So with that, we've all gone through that program, and it is very, very, very impacting, and it's very needed. So
I'm going to jump to Dr. Pierce now, because you're with the Veterans Benefits Administration. I almost gave Mr. Williams your job, but I'm glad you jumped in to take it back. So again, tell us what you do and how you serve the veteran community.
Thank you. And absolutely, I echo Mr. Williams. I appreciate the opportunity and the warm welcome. I currently serve as the Assistant Director for the Office of Outreach, Transition, and Economic Development as the Transition or VA's TAP advisor or leader. And what we do is we educate the roughly 250,000 transitioning service members about their VA benefits and services that they may be entitled to. Now, military spouses are encouraged to attend as well. But I will say it is a 1-day, 8-hour full course where we cover the benefits and services that they might be entitled to VA, and we also cover some resources that are available to service members and veterans once they separate with regards to NGOs or non-governmental organizations and community resources. And I can tell you, as a veteran and a military spouse myself, the work that we do here is near and dear to my heart.
Fantastic. For both of you, a while back, and I apologize for not doing my research for this show, but there've been a lot of complaints over the years about former military personnel not being able to tap into resources, the increased numbers of those who are in homeless shelters, of course, medical conditions. They're not able to get the resources that they need to address some of the mental health issues that they have and physical health issues. Are things getting any better? And I know you all are going to say yes, but or that they are great. But I mean, is it that folks aren't really tapping into the resources? They're not coming to you? Is there not enough outreach? What's going on?
So I'll start. So things are getting better because it's organizations and news networks like yourselves that are helping us to push the services that we're providing to our veterans and service members. Here in the District of Columbia, we have 4 American Job Centers. And one I speak highly of because I'm located at is 4058 Minnesota Avenue. And with our American Job Centers, they're like our career one-stops, and they're funded through the U.S. Department of Labor. And they provide, and Denise, I'm going to say this, they provide free assistance to veterans and military spouses and job seekers. And that offers a lot of career and employment needs. We have over 2,500 American Job Centers located throughout the USA. American Job Centers provide free services, including resume writing, interview skills, and job preparation. So with that, if I could leave a message to our viewers today, definitely I'm asking for each and every one, if they're looking for employment, to come visit one of our American Job Centers here in the District of Columbia.
How about you, Dr. Pierce?
I would say I would say that VA has gone above and beyond in addressing service members' feedback. We do different types of things such as human-centered design activities, etc. Within the TAP program itself, we get the feedback from the curriculum that we administer during our 1 day of TAP. And based on that feedback, we modify or enhance our programs and services and the delivery of the same. With that being said, we've made great strides in enhancing the services that we provide, even making sure that they're aware. And what our indicators have manifest for us is that service members, the resources are there, but sometimes it's a lot of resource such that they have a hard time deciphering how to access, or it's just, you know, as they used to say, water from a fire hose. So what we've done, we've implemented a program such as VA Solid Start, where service members, once they separate, they get a personalized phone call within that critical first year separation. And it's personalized. It's not us. It is, it's not just us saying, here are the benefits that we have, you know, a repeat of TAP. It is, you've heard it in TAP. Now here's the follow-up. What do you need? They drive the conversation. So if I have a service member who says that they are a veteran, newly separated veteran, who indicates that they don't have a place to stay or they're living with family members, that VA Solid Start trained representative is able to connect them to the resources that they need. They have a service member or a recently separated veteran who may not have a job, then we connect them to our partner, DOL, but they drive the conversation in a personalized way. So I would say we've made great strides based on the feedback that we received from our recently separated veterans. And there are a lot of programs and services. It's just a matter of making sure that they're aware and know how to connect.
Wonderful. And I'm glad that you all are here to share that with folks, at least in this area. And we hope we can help to get that word out. Dr. Pierce, what's the difference between, let's say, women veterans and male veterans? Are the services the same, or are they different? How do you manage that?
That's a great question. As a woman veteran, I'll tell you, my peers, we have always said we do not like to be singled out from our male counterparts. So we go to the table, we can execute the same way as our male counterparts. So I think the better question is, you know, whether or not once they become veterans, do we have resources that are tailored to their specific needs from a healthcare perspective? Because that's where we're different, right? So with that being said, VA has made important progress toward providing women veterans specific training in the way of women's healthcare. We just implemented or rolled out a new women's health transition training. That training consists of a 5-phase course that can be taken anytime, anywhere. And it outlines the different resources that are tailored to our women-specific needs over at VA Healthcare. healthcare benefits, mental well-being, the VA culture itself, and how to enroll in your eligibility requirements. And more importantly, it is an opportunity for women veterans to connect with other women veterans and be connected to the resources they've earned. So yes, there are differences on the healthcare perspective, but we do not like to be singled out from our male counterparts in other ways. And I would say the last thing is that we have a Center for Women Veterans that stand ready to support a female veteran in any capacity, and that's connecting. They have monthly calls every month. They have monthly calls to connect and bring in not just women veterans, but resources and advocates on behalf of the same.
We've put up website addresses, not only for the program, the VA program for women's vets, but also where you are, Mr. Williams, the Career Center. I'm curious, I had a conversation with someone the other day who talked about the fact that he called himself, he didn't know what he was thinking when he volunteered for the Vietnam War, but he went in really to gain some training. And fortunately, he didn't go into combat. He said the majority of, and I'm just saying this to see if you can confirm this, a lot of people who join the military really don't go into combat, but are they going into and gaining skills that are marketable once they leave? He wanted to be, I believe, a radio technician, and came out and ended up not being came out being a television technician. That's what it was at the time. But does the military, and I'm not asking you to do a promotion here for joining the military, but are the services or the skills that you learn in the military, are there a lot of them transferable, or are people coming out really having to start all over again?
Wow, that's a great question, Denise. The skills that I guess you're getting in the military, they are transferable into the civilian world. The thing of it is, how do you change the language? Because we speak a different language in the military compared to what is spoken in the civilian world. So that is where you need to connect with one of our veteran representatives at our American Job Centers to show you how to translate that resume from what your skills you've learned in the military into the civilian, and how to because it's very difficult. It was very difficult. And for me, being a retired military person serving, I definitely went into the military to fix on helicopters, and here I am today doing the job that I'm doing. But the skill sets that I've learned in the military helped me to be able to do this job and to be able to share my knowledge and the things that I've experienced. So I would say to anyone who's transitioning and coming out, you have to be able to get that resume to kind of be able to transition to the civilian side, and so that the civilian person can understand what you're talking about. So.
And I also want to know for people who, like you said, are now have transferred out of the military. A lot of times people just don't have a lot of patience, right? So you get this email address, it gives you a phone number, you got to go through the dial 1, dial 2, dial 3. Is there a way that people can really talk to somebody, or is that where we are in the world of assistance is, pick a number and hopefully, you'll get to who you want to talk to. Is it made any easier for veterans?
I think it's a lot easier. First of all, we have a website. It's called careeronestop.org.
Okay.
I encourage everyone to go to that website, because what that does is it will tell you and identify where the American Job Center that is located near you. Secondly, there are veteran representatives at American Job Centers who they're there and funded through the Department of Labor to help veterans. And that is a disabled veteran outreach program persons, which we call them DVOPs. And then we have local veteran employment representatives. So veterans have a priority when they go to the American Job Centers. So it's a matter of either they can go in person, they can go online, or make that phone call. And I have not had any any incidents where someone couldn't get through to one of our veteran representatives, because the Career One Stop, our website, I'm sorry, will give them the connection that they need to connect with that veteran representative.
Wonderful. Dr. Pierce, you said you all are doing a lot better. So how is it working?
I think, with regards to communication, I will use the Transition Assistance Program as an example. Traditionally, that's in person solely, making sure that we accommodate veterans and their schedules, et cetera. We have web-based training now and virtual instructor-led training now to afford them that flexibility. So I go back to what I said earlier. We get the feedback from veterans and their service members, and that feedback is used to enhance our programs and services. The VA Solid Start program, as mentioned earlier, is an example of how we tailor the delivery of our products based on their inputs with those personalized calls that critical first year. So I don't know if we can say we've made great. I can't say that there hasn't been great strides, and maybe again it's just a matter of sometimes amplifying all the good things that's going on behind the curtain.
Wonderful. And lastly, and I don't know if you all can answer this, but sadly we know that so many who do go into the military and go into combat don't make it home, but they leave at home, wives or spouses, I should say, partners and children. Do either one of your departments or organizations support families?
Dr. Pierce, I'll let you take a shot.
Yes, so absolutely. An example of that would be our VA Insurance Service Center. If a service member has transferred their SGLI or Service Group Life Insurance to the Veterans Group Life Insurance, those funds are then paid to their beneficiaries, which in often cases is the spouse or a loved one or dependent. That is one example. When you talk about loan guarantee, VBA's loan guarantee and home loans, if that veteran has a home loan, then there are individuals who stand ready to support that spouse through navigating the process of making sure that they can retain their housing. So those are examples. And we also have programs for caregivers and survivors. We have a department. My colleague, Assistant Director Ann Duff, runs the Survivor Benefits Program. So yes, we do have services available to those families.
Well, that's great. We're about to wrap up. Is there any last word you all want to add that I may not have asked about with regards to just making sure that folks come and knock on your door if they need you?
I would absolutely like to add in the chat box the list of programs that are underutilized. We hear a lot about compensation and the benefits component of VBA, but there is a plethora of other benefits and services afforded veterans. And sometimes we find that they're not aware and they don't utilize it. It's in the space of career enhancement to augment what our partners DOL is doing. And it's also in the space of just making sure that you know what you're entitled to. And some of them are time sensitive. So if we can make sure that those are added, we have VA administrators and team members who are standing by to support them and navigate the big VA.
Wonderful. Is there a place where a person can go and just your regular website is where you can look for those services? Is that what you're saying?
So yes, we do have the VA website, and we do have different links to each one of the programs. I offer up the individualized links to support and highlight the underutilized programs. And I'd be happy to provide those so that they can go in the chat box. So yes, there is a VA website, but back to the personalization and the customer experience, I provided those specific links.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're continuing to serve, and that's one thing that we especially appreciate. We're going to try to get those links up before we go for the end of the show. I guess Chevry has them. I think you said you sent them, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll work to get those up for our viewers. Unfortunately, we need the URL as opposed to the link per se. So anyway, but we will make sure that we can get those up when we rebroadcast this. And we appreciate you sending that to us and sharing this information with us. Thank you so much for all that you do and that you're continuing to do. And we want to do our best to make sure that we have folks knocking on your door to get the services that you provide.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Have a great day.
You too. So, we just talked a little bit about caregivers, and I guess I need to reiterate, I appreciate what Dr. Pierce and Mr. Williams said, and there is a concern, and they evidently have expressed it and feel it as well, that, our veterans have many resources that the government's trying to provide. And so I was glad that they were willing to join us today to talk about the programs, and we need to make sure that our veterans tap into those programs. It's just important that as we continue to build our community, take care of our veterans and their families, that the resources that we as government taxpayers are paying for are being utilized. So again, check out those links that we shared earlier. And if you want to come back and watch the show a little later, hopefully we'll have the other links up as well. So as I said before, November is National Caregivers Month. And many of us are caregivers or have been caregivers or will soon be in those roles. And so today we're talking to Patricia Morris, the CEO and founder of Hands of Hope, as well as Monica Perry, a caregiver also. And welcome both of you all to WIN TV. How are you?
Thank you, Denise. And a special thanks to you and your staff for having us on today. I just love caregivers. So audience, if you are a caregiver, I have a few things to share with you this afternoon. And I want to say you are angels. You are my angels because you do a great job. And what I have the program Hands of Hope. And I started Hands of Hope because I became a caregiver overnight. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, and my mother called me one day and my father, and my mother said to me, I think I'm losing my sight. And I said, what, Mom? I said, I got to get you up here. I got to get you to Maryland. And my dad and myself and my family, we did that right away. And guess what? I was a caregiver. I didn't even know what the word meant, really.
And that's what I do. I want both of you all to talk about what does that mean? We hear it a lot, and we take care of our kids. We take care of people. But what does it mean to be a caregiver?
What it means to be a caregiver. Someone has a chronic illness, say maybe depression, heart disease, stroke, whatever the chronic illness is. You might be taking care of a loved one who's dealing with that. It could be dementia, in which Monica's going to talk a little bit about. It could be any type of chronic disease. You can be a caregiver for a child, a mom, a dad, a friend, just like a neighbor I'm just mentioning, anybody, Denise. And what that means is somebody cannot do for themselves like they used to do for themselves.
Ms. Perry, talk about that. Talk about, you're a caregiver, and Ms. Morris talked about how it happened overnight, and sounds like that's how these things can happen. But talk about your experience.
It definitely happens overnight. We weren't prepared. My mom went into the hospital, and as part of her release, we went to have different testing done, and then she was diagnosed with stage 1 Alzheimer's. So we were caught completely off guard. Caregiving experience for me has been both unexpected yet rewarding. It's unexpected because we weren't prepared. We didn't have a power of attorney. We didn't have a power of attorney for financial matters. We don't have a will. We didn't have a will in place. We didn't have any of the documentation that we should do early on. Really, we should start in our 20s, preparing for all of this stuff in our future. Mm-hmm. So we had to get all of that documentation in place. Then we had to figure out, well, she's able to care for herself, but we need to make sure that someone makes sure that her medicine is administered because of different little ailments and things of that nature. So we had to devise a plan. Fortunately, when we left the neurologist's office, or as we left the neurologist's office, they gave us a card for Miss Patricia Morris, and that kind of helped us a great deal.
You keep saying, I hate to interrupt because you keep saying we, and who's the we?
So I have 4 other siblings.
Okay, all right.
And so we're a team, and unfortunately, many caregivers don't have a team.
Right.
So many are by themselves, and in the day that we're living in now, you know, everyone has their own home. So you have your own family. You know, when we were growing up, a lot of the homes were multi-families. So I wasn't prepared to take care of anyone. I thought you just get old and you pass away, and you don't have to have someone to care for you, because we always had multiple people in the home. So it was always someone, an adult in the home to make sure everything was okay. So what I try to tell people is to plan in advance, and also to get like a gallon size Ziploc bag or something like that. Put the person's ID, the list of medicines, their insurance cards, any important documentations, because if something were to happen immediately, you know, it's a state of emergency, and you don't know where to go to look for anything. So if you put that stuff away, then you're already prepared, and you know, that can help out on a lot of things. But
Ms. Morris, is that what, those are the kinds of things that you helped Ms. Perry with? Is that what you do with your Hands of Hope organization, to kind of guide people through the process?
Yes, Denise, and that's what Hands of Hope is really all about. So if someone wants to be a part of Hands of Hope, they will learn about all those types of things, because I want my caregivers to be equipped to do this, to make this challenge work for them. And so now that this pandemic is here, we do Zoom every 4th Saturday from 1 to 2. And I have all types of speakers to come on and share information to help my caregivers. And I call them my caregivers because they are. I love them. And so people come on and talk about dementia, you know, depression, sharing your feelings. How do you take care of yourself? You know, what Monica just talked about, the legal things that you should have. If your person has to go into the hospital, you know, they have all that in a bag so you can make sure that they're taken care of properly. It was really a challenge, and it still is a challenge for my caregivers right now. If someone goes into the hospital, you know, they can't go in like they used to. So
Exactly.
So that bag that Monica talks about, that you should have right on your kitchen table or somewhere near you, take that bag with you to the hospital. Talk to that hospital person. Here is my loved one's information. Don't ask them information that they can't answer. I have it right here for you, so that you can do what you need to do for my loved one.
It sounds like, I'm sorry, Doctor, I didn't mean to interrupt, but because we are going to be running out of time. And I wanted to ask a couple other questions too, because you talked about banking situations. I mean, how do you handle, you know, a person ends up with dementia, they've got their bills to pay, you know, who handles that? How do you get, like you said, I guess, power of attorney or whatever it takes to make sure that you can handle the financial wherewithal of the person you're taking care of?
One thing the caregivers do, Denise, that we need to work on very hard with them, and that is they take on all the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody in that family who can help with different things, and that's why Monica is talking about a team. When I had the team with my mom, my husband was the vice principal here in Prince George's. I had 2 sons. Everybody came together and said what they could do, even the 2 boys. My mother was a diabetic, and so therefore the boys learned how to give her a shot by practicing on an orange. You know, everybody can do something. Caregivers need to say, Denise, yes, I need help. I need help. I can't do everything. Monica's team, she has a very good team of family members, and somebody on that team can deal with the legal piece.
So in cases when, you know, because there are cases when people don't have that team,
right?
So does the government? Is there help from the government, particularly as it comes to financial support?
No.
Are there help from other? I mean, I know you're a nonprofit organization, and is that what people should reach out for? Organizations like yours to provide that support?
You're right, Denise. They should reach out to support groups. That's where you get your information. That's what I try to do at Hands of Hope. That's why I bring speakers on who might be able to give the information that my caregivers need. Caregivers need support. They can't do this alone. At some point, they're going to say, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to say that, but they might have to say that. So
Right,
they
right.
start thinking about assisted living or nursing home or bringing someone in. Don't feel guilty about that. That's why we have support groups to talk about the guilt feelings, the emotions, like being angry because all the families now were stepping in to help. You know, all these emotional feelings they're going to have until this journey ends.
Right.
And so
right.
therefore we need support groups. And one of the things that's going to happen at my conference on November the 20th, Monica is one of my conversationalists, but we're going to have 6 panelists.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I need you. We're going to talk about, yes, that's what I wanted to do. Thank you, Sherry,
Okay.
for putting that up. So the conference, the National Caregivers Conference,
This is
your conference.
This is my conference.
Right. And that's coming up on November the 20th. Give us where it's going to take place.
It's going to be on Zoom.
Wonderful. Okay.
You see the information on the flyer. It says it's going to be Zoom from 1 to 2:30. You're going to have a conversation with caregivers. I think this is Caregivers Month. We need to be able to hear from them. So a caregiver is going to talk about a little bit about dementia and the challenges. Someone's going to talk about respite care because caregivers need respite.
Right.
I'm telling you, they need respite.
And I see you have a one. I will almost call her a role model when it comes to caregiving. Pat Lawson-Muse, I think, who has also been a caregiver.
Yes.
Channel 4.
Right.
I've been in that position as well. Had to play that role, but I think that's fantastic that you're doing this. And I mean, people do have a lot of questions, and they need support. And I think that's a great thing that you're doing. So again, the conference is when now?
It's November 20th, 1 to 2:30. It's on Zoom. Read the flyer. Tell them to read the flyer. They're welcome. It's no registration, Denise. You come on, sit back, relax, and learn as much as you can. If you want to become a part of Hands of Hope, there's no fee to become a part of Hands of Hope. You can. I think at some point you will be putting it out. The telephone number, my website.
Right. And so they can go to the website as well and register for the conference, correct?
No, they don't even have to register.
Okay, just to get the details in the Zoom link.
Zoom, bam, come on.
Fantastic. I really want to thank both of you all for being with us and for sharing really much needed information. There are a lot of caregivers out there who really need this. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Denise, can I say one other thing before we leave?
Yes.
Caregivers, if you're out there in the audience this afternoon, please take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Take care of yourselves, because if you don't, then you'll be ill, and then you can't take care of your loved one. So just take care of yourselves. If you need some help, call Hands of Hope. I will be there for you. You're my angels.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you all.
Self-care is very important. Many of our caregivers wind up falling ill themselves. So it's important to take a moment for yourself.
Yes. Well, you take care of yourself, Ms. Perry. And give a shout out to those young men that are helping you as well. We never talk about the men who end up being caregivers.
There you go.
It always looks like the women end up left with that job, but there are a lot of men out there that are doing it as well.
I have some in my group, Denise.
All right, good. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All righty. Yeah, so please tap into that event and make sure if you need a support system, there's someone out there to help you. So I'm not sure, Sherry, do we have enough time to go into these interviews with Will and the 2 candidates, or do we want to, we're going to check them out later, but we do want you to check us out on the web. Will Ford, Prince George's County editor, has had a conversation with Delegate Brooke Learman and businessman Tim Adams. Both of them are candidates for the Democratic nomination for Maryland Comptroller. We certainly want you to hear what they have to say and what their platforms are. We've got a big election season coming up, folks, in the next year. And so while all eyes were on Virginia, a lot of eyes, or all eyes, will be on Maryland and Washington, D.C. So continue to watch us as we bring the candidates to you. You get to hear their platforms. And if you want to know more, you can visit our website. And even if you have questions that you'd like to ask them, or issues that you want us to raise, again, email us at news@washingtoninformer.com. That's news, N-E-W-S, at washingtoninformer.com. So I'm not sure if we're going to go to Sounds of the DMV. Okay, so we are going to cut this program short. We were over time, but we thank you for being with us, and we will see you this time next week. Have a safe weekend. Stay well.